Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up, soon to be renamed MOSH SHINOBI, with me, Fed Up Guys. Joining me today are Andy and Melissa from the band. You just told me how to pronounce it correctly as well, and it's evaporated already. Stygian?
Stygian crown.
Stygian crown. Oh, man. Oh, well. Work in progress. So how is it going today, apart from me butchering the name of your band before we even start?
It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's almost 80 degrees outside and clear skies, and yeah, it does not feel like winter here.
Yeah, one of my best buddy lives in San Diego, and he said yesterday it was 81 when he was just driving around in the car. So it was just like a sweatbox, stupidly hot. Not like here in the Northeast where it's like Mordor out there. Ugh, man. And so one thing I always like to start off with bands is looking at the artwork. And I apologize in advance if I get super nerdy on this show, because this has really fired up my imagination, the whole album. And the artwork, I love it because you've got what looks like a king or emperor sat on the thrones. You see lots of people, possibly slaves, carrying a tombed warrior, person of importance, maybe. The ruined buildings are around. It's got all of those fantasy epic vibes, really matches the tone of the album. So I'm wondering who developed that artwork for you, and did you give them free rein, or did you all go back and forth with the artist?
You want to take that, Andy?
The art's done by legendary metal album cover artist Chris Verwimp. It's just an absolute honor to have someone like Chris do the artwork for it. And really it came from the drummer Rhett having just one or two conversations with Chris, kind of letting him hear a little bit of the tracks that we had finished at the time. And we gave him, I don't want to tell Chris what to do. He's a great artist. So like you said, it's got all the fantasy elements. It matches it is like a funeral procession, matches the title of the record. It has all of the snake elements in the background. So yeah, we were blown away, and obviously super happy with it.
Has anybody commented on the cover so far from when they've seen it and given you similar feedback? Those fantasy vibes, matches the title "Funeral for a King," because it does remind me of those movies so much, and a lot of those novels that I've read as well.
The feedback I've received has just been all positive. And in fact, some people have been finding the record simply because Chris did the art, and he's got so many fans of his own that they're going to follow his work. But yeah, the band name evokes some Conan the Barbarian themes. And having Chris do the art like this, I mean, you can just kind of see like this taking place in that world, and it really matches the whole vibe of the band.
Yeah, it really does. It's very captivating, and I like the style he's done, where there's it, and I mean this in a good way, where it's as if it's like an old school painting or drawing that somebody's come across. Something to go super fantasy nerd here. Don't worry, I will get to your music. But like when you see in those movies or something where someone's dusting off one of those tomes or books, and then there's like a picture of like a king or emperor or queen or whoever, it just kind of reminds me of that. So I thought, it's pretty epic. So you've got a nice instrumental opener as well, which is the title of the album, "Funeral for a King." So when I was listening to it, and again, my nerdy imagination going crazy here, I was wondering, was that instrumental placed at the start of the album to convey like the atmosphere as if it was some kind of funeral procession in this fantasy world to introduce the music, or am I totally way off?
No, well, I mean, unless Melissa wants to hop in here, but I've kind of the reason we decided open it with an instrumental was, well, first of all, the first record starts off with just kind of a vocal opening. And when we were playing live, we liked the idea of having a big opening. That didn't take too long though, because we don't want, our songs are a little on the longer side, so we can't be playing something too long. So we were playing a bolt thrower cover, keyed down to our range. We would open all of our shows with War, and that would kind of create like an atmosphere for what the band was about to do, and also a very like dramatic and dynamic moment for Melissa to then come out a minute or two after the band had been playing. And I mean, obviously when she starts singing, it's incredible and moving and shocking. And so we decided when we were starting to, actually we had already been writing the record for a bit, but we were like, we want to keep that feeling from the live show on the record. So we developed this intro track.
The other thing is that we didn't have any songs called Funeral for a King, and that particular title just didn't, it didn't fit the overarching theme of the album. So we wanted to add something that went to that, and that's how that song came about. Yeah,
it's very atmospheric. I'd imagine playing that live, perfect way to introduce the music, the tone. I can see it already in my mind. Complete lights out, mist coming up. That'd be fantastic. So you mentioned, Andy, that you had been writing this album for a while. So do you all share the creative process with each other, go back and forth with the ideas, edit parts out, and then do you do the same with the music as well, so you ensure everything flows?
Yeah, the process kind of changes song to song. I mean, a lot of it's especially with this record, Melissa will come to us with some almost fully fledged ideas, where they'll be written on piano. She'll have these incredible vocal melodies to go with them, and then we're kind of tasked with turning that into a doom song, or a heavy metal song, which is a fun challenge because she's such a good musician, and her that you don't want to take these arrangements she's done and kind of dumb them down. Sometimes it just happens very organically and it's easy, but she wrote this song for the record that we spent almost a year and a half trying to figure out how are we going to turn this into a Stygian crown song, and we couldn't figure it out. And we just decided, like, we just approached Melissa. We're like, let's just put your version of it on the record. Like, the rest of us have nothing to add to it. It's good how it is. Yeah. So there's a track on the record that is just Melissa.
Well, it's me and piano and a violinist that I recruited, and some keyboard choir stuff. So it kind of has a little My Dying Bride vibe to it. But it's different than anything on the previous record. But another approach that we do is that Nelson comes up with quite a few riffs that we kind of build songs around as well. And the bands, they get together, the band members, they get together and they build a song around that. And then I'll come back in later and put words to it. So there's a couple of different approaches that we have. And then another thing that happened this time around is Eric took a couple of the riffs that I had created on piano and fleshed those out into songs. So everybody's bringing something to the table. It's really cool how it works out.
So it's a real good contributive effort. Is the song you run, because I was going to go through the tracks, each one, do a deep dive. I always do that. Is the song by any chance you mentioned that got that My Dying vibe? Can't even say My Dying Bride now. I'm doing so good today. Believe it or not, I'm learning 3 languages as well. You wouldn't think.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Struggling to get time to practice. That's a problem. But it's the song you were mentioning. It's got the My Dying Bride. By any chance, is that the closing track straight off Messina?
No, it's Blood Red Eyes.
Ah, yes, that was a beautiful one as well.
Yeah.
That was a very nice one. So moving on to the next one, and this one particularly caught my attention. And I know you told me, Melissa, it wasn't for the ideas I was thinking of, but that is Bushido. Being an avid martial artist and obsessed with the culture, that immediately stood out. But I read through the lyrics as well. Very, again, it's got that powerful kind of cinematic feel to it as well. Particularly there's one part where it's mentioning someone like using, I think, guerrilla warfare, stealth, everything. I mean, my imagination was just going absolutely overload. So these songs, even before the music, they must have been really fun to write, just given the themes and concept. Must be highly enjoyable, because I'd imagine you feel like you're almost, in a sense, writing like a heavy metal score for one of those kind of movies.
Yeah, so trying to think back. I want to, so our previous bass player, Jason, he had this riff, the bass riff that you hear, he wrote that. And we built a song around that. And I was thinking, I had been thinking about the subject of that song is a World War II holdout who was a Japanese imperial lieutenant who was assigned to the Philippines to conduct guerrilla warfare against the Americans. And the war ended. He was on the wrong side of it. But he did not realize that the war had ended, and he wouldn't believe anybody who told him that the war had ended. People went so far as to drop leaflets from airplanes onto the island to tell him, hey, it's over. Give up. You lost. Give up. He didn't believe it. He thought that was a ruse. And so, but he had this code all along, is to a code of honor. And that, the other code is that you should never, ever kill yourself. So that's where that line, never suicide, comes from. So I just thought that was the perfect subject for that song, because it has that war vibe to it. You can picture him and his fellow soldiers, rushing the Americans, and the same on the other side. It just kind of had that. It has a real strong Maiden vibe to it as well. So I really had a lot of fun writing the lyrics for that song.
Very much so, and it's got a good tempo as well when the riffs come in, good headbanging part. And wasn't there recently, I know it was fairly recent, there was a Japanese soldier who was found on one of the islands out there. I think he'd been there for, 50, 60 plus years or something. Like what you said, Melissa, refused to believe that the war was over. So I know that's happened a few times as well. So that's super interesting stuff. So when you had the lyrics for this as well, did you already have the music, and it was a case of just putting the lyrics on top of it?
Yeah, the music was done, and it just needed words and a melody. And I had been reading, his name is Hiro Onoda, and I've been reading his novel, doing research on him, and just trying to figure out what the chorus should be. And there's a slower part towards the end, and I was trying to figure out how to make that work. That the lyrics came after the music.
Yeah. I've got a book, and I never got through it all, but it's called Blood and Bushido, all about the horrors and atrocities that happened in World War II on both sides in the Pacific. So yeah, interesting. It was really interesting stuff, but crazy for sure. The next one, again, Scourge of the Seven Hills. I just wondered if you both could break down what inspired the title, a bit about the themes and the lyrics, and tell us a little bit how you got the music together for the song as well.
You want to start with the music, Andy?
I think this was a Nelson.
That was a Nelson riff?
I believe so. And a lot of these, this was one of the first ones that we wrote after we had released the self-titled record. we were still in that really traditional doomy phase of writing. And this is probably, if it had come out on the last record, would have been like the apex of what we had been trying to do on that first record. It's just so classic doom.
Yeah.
And it arranged itself pretty easily. And then it was just up to Melissa. The fun thing writing music from Melissa, I mean, you just experienced it with Bushido, and then same with Scourge, is she comes to you with these ideas and they're so fleshed out, and you're like getting a history lesson. in being in the band. And I don't even know all the lyrics until the record is fully recorded. I know parts of them, but yeah, I always really enjoy getting those liner notes and being like, oh, that's what she's saying. Wow, this is like really good and really interesting.
So the lyrics came from, I got to thank Dr. Jeremy Swiss for this one. He's a classicist professor who's been consulting, helping me with lyrics.
Wow.
But basically, a classicist is somebody whose specialty is in mythology. And so I met him when we were playing a fest in Chicago. And we were having pizza in Chicago, and I said, well, what should I be writing lyrics about? And he said, well, there's this really cool story during Hercules' 12 labors, where he is on his way back and he encounters this fire giant named Cacus. And so I had never heard of this monster before, and so I looked it up, and Cacus was a fire giant who basically just terrorized everybody in the region where he inhabited, and they called him the Scourge of the Seven Hills because it was in Rome. And so during his encounter with Hercules, Hercules had a bunch of head of cattle, and he went to sleep. And Cacus said, okay, he's asleep, I'm going to go steal some of this cattle. Well, he led the cattle back to his cave. Hercules woke up, and he's pissed. And so he goes over there, and they get into a battle. And at one point, Hercules strangles Cacus so much that his eyes pop out of his head. It's very violent. Anyway, we performed that song for the first time at Hammer of Doom in Germany. And then we performed it again the following year at Hell Over Hammerberg, and it seemed to go over well. But we write a lot about Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and that's just one example.
Those deep conversations are what Melissa's doing during pizza, and then Nelson and I remember this dinner, and he and I are just talking about how much we like Pequods. Pizza is good. Yes.
See, I'm in my absolute element because I've got such an interest in those areas as well. And when this is fused with metal and extreme metal as well, I'm in my absolute, like I said, element, because it's not bashing on bands that usually do the traditional themes. I like many of those bands, but it's nice that someone has a different concept. You've got the mythology there, the history. It's just, I feel it just adds a different layer altogether. It's got that substance. So Andy, when you're seeing these lyrics and you're hearing about these stories, and like you said, like a history lesson, that must be not only interesting, but quite different to, I'd imagine, what you previously used to playing, or I could be wrong.
No, it is interesting. She has like a unique perspective on these stories too. She doesn't, I mean, lots of people could tell you about Hercules and his labors. She does this thing where she'll tell you almost from the perspective of the monster.
Interesting.
That happens with a lot of her lyrics, and that's a very fun way of seeing these songs, or seeing these stories in these songs, is from that perspective.
They're all first person. Because I think that people we have this viewpoint of what monsters are. Everybody kind of has a different perspective, and often they're viewed as negative.
Yeah.
But seeing it from the perspective of the monster will change your perspective on that. And I think that's just so cool, you know?
Definitely. I've only ever heard that example one time before, and it was a recent guest, a sludge band from Belgium, and a lot of their lyrics were kind of about dealing with inner demons, mental health, and he said he wanted to write as well to include the narrative of the monster. There were certain songs where he said he sang like in two vocal styles, one clean, the other unclean, and it was so the two different voices would stand out. So, as you said, Melissa, we usually hear negative experiences on monsters. It's nice to get that other narrative. Makes you think, well, how did this creature or person become this? What were the wants? What is there a sadness, beneath the surface, deep down? There's some tragic experience. So many different areas we could go into. So where I'm going to with this, and I'm trying to behave myself because I know I'm getting very hyper here, is I should just put a great big disclaimer on at the start of the show. Warning, colossal nerd. Anyway, when you're singing about these areas, Melissa, do you get that? Do you think of how that character would feel from their perspective, and do you put that into your voice? Because you have some very, I feel, not only a beautiful singing voice, but it's very captivating as well. It really has that atmosphere, which I feel contributes to the music.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. But that whole style of switching between clean and dirty is perfect for that framework. Unfortunately, I do not know how to sing death vocals, so I don't have that. And we actually did experiment with that a little bit, but it didn't fly. So I don't know. I mean, it's so cool. There are other vocalists out there in the underground who are able to do what I call method singing, where they're able to project that character that they're singing about. I'm working on that. That's a work in progress for me. But I feel it when I'm singing it. When I'm singing about that fire giant, I feel his struggle. I feel, the sense of dread and doom when, he knows that he's not going to make it, that Hercules is going to destroy him, things like that. We had a song on the first record called Up from the Depths that had to do with Cerberus. That was another example of feeling for a character that people might not feel sympathy for. This is a three-headed dog that was brought up from Hades against his will, and paraded around like a war trophy, and so I tried to see it from his perspective. And I try to do that with a lot of these songs. Same with Bushido, that guy, he felt an immense sense of solitude, but also he wanted to do his duty no matter what, at any cost. So,
right. I think as a listener, or at least what I hope the listener will experience, is they'll listen to these lyrics, maybe on the first listen, not necessarily, or the first couple listens, not know the perspective that the song is from.
Yeah.
Feel a connection to this character in some way, because these lyrics are powerful.
Very.
And we're hoping that people will have that connection. And then when you dive into it a little bit more, you realize, oh, wait, I'm feeling for this character. I knew that this song, I might not have known that this song was about Hercules and this monster. And now I'm realizing I was sort of rooting in the song or feeling in the song for the monster. What does that say about me and the idea that there are monsters out there? The Bushido is still just such a fascinating, it's a story, because clearly there's generations of people who may hate a person like this. But I think it's undeniable that he did his duty. He is an honorable man.
Yeah.
And from another perspective, he is a national hero. And then, yeah.
And from another perspective, the Islanders considered him a monster, because he considered everybody that was there to be the enemy. And so he killed a lot of people after the war was ended, not realizing that they were completely innocent. So it all depends on whose perspective is, play there.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly the culture, the duty that this person has been tasked with. And you made a very good point there, Andy, that you don't get this on first listen. I did get the sense of being drawn into this world, but it's only after 4 or 5 listens, then it feels like I said, it does feel like a fantasy novel, fantasy movie, very immersive. Certainly gets you thinking. Your vocals, Melissa, have this, especially when you hold the notes. And I'm going to try and put this the best way I can, and I'm probably going to do a bad job, but it like reinforces the music and the lyrics, where it's almost like you're a narrator in a sense, telling the story, especially when you hold those notes as well, and it really comes across to my ears, and which made it very enjoyable. And when you get to the end of the album, you want to revisit it because you want to feel those emotions, that atmosphere again. That's just what I personally experienced through it. I thought it was very, like I said, very immersive, something that you could certainly lose yourself in. And to me, like a heavy metal fantasy novel, and I mean that in the nicest way.
That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. I've got to give you 900 million points, Andy, as well, just for the Godzilla shirt I can see there. I've been trying not to comment. I thought it's no good. I'm going to have to say something. So Godzilla -1, I haven't seen that yet, but it's on the watch list. Definitely got to.
It would also fit into the themes that we've just been talking about of the monster and the perspective.
Yeah, we need a Godzilla song.
Yeah, definitely, because
I've been subliminally trying to suggest that for a long time.
Here, write this.
Yeah. Why not? He's often viewed as both, sometimes a hero, sometimes not.
That's
and
a
I thought,
perfect subject, yes.
And I thought when you mentioned the Japanese soldier as well, who, he thought he was doing his duty in his honor and was viewed by the Islanders as a monster. And it made me think of as well the Gurkhas that hunted the Japanese in World War II.
Oh, sure.
And they were viewed as, from, I guess, the Allied side, heroes doing the duty, but from the Japanese side at that time, dishonorable, because, they often used, obviously, a lot of stealth, dishonorable way of taking out the enemy. So it's definitely true, depends on what side to get that perspective. And that makes it for good inspiring material for writing and for playing music. So yeah. Moving on to the next one, which is curious on this one. Let Thy Snares Be Planted. I wondered what inspired the title, and it's an instrumental. So is this what I thought when I was listening, just to kind of really amp up the atmosphere again?
Let Thy Snares Be Planted is a line from Faust. I spent many months reading all versions of Faust, and that was a line that stood out for me. But basically, this is a lead-in track for the bargain. And what I kind of envisioned for that was something that, so Rhett, the drummer, and we had a conversation, and I said, what do you think about, there's a movie called Tombstone. There's a scene in Tombstone where they're in the theater and they're actually reenacting the story of Faust, selling his soul to the devil and all that stuff. And there's a song, and I can't remember the name of the composer. It's classical composer. Dance Macabre is the song. And I thought that would be great if we could do some version of that leading into a song about Faust. And so we set out to figure out how we were going to do that. And I had a friend who I'd worked with previously named Anne Hackman, who performs with the LA Philharmonic. She's a violinist. And I said, here's what I want. And I gave her examples. I also gave her, there's a recurring song that's in a movie called The Red Violin. I gave her that as well. Just this really weird, odd time gypsy song. And so she just kind of ran with it. And that's where that the main riff for Let Thy Snares Be Planted comes from. And that's probably one of the weirdest things that I've ever been a part of.
Interesting story and background to it, though, and that certainly that leads into the next one perfectly.
Well, if I can just also
go ahead, Andy. You go ahead.
The dance macabre that inspires this is famous for being based on a set of tritones in music that get called the Devil's Note, and these notes are what Black Sabbath used to write the titular Black Sabbath, which sort of starts the entire doom genre. And so it all just fits into what we're trying to do too.
Yeah, and that already now makes me think, was one of the guys, very well known, I've mentioned it on other shows, didn't he say one of the members of Sabbath, he woke up during the night and there was like a dark figure pointing at him and he thought it was the devil or something.
Right.
Never gotten that. So yeah, wow, that's certainly well, speaking of the bargain, from the lyrics, and when I heard you singing as well, and there's War, the Curse of Mephisto song in there. So is this all about making a deal with the devil or demon, trying to maybe trap them so that you can maybe negotiate in your favor as well?
So the story has been written different ways, but basically it centers around this guy named Faust, who's a scholar and he's accomplished many things and he's become bored with life. Right. And he's basically just like reaching out, saying, man, I just want to break out of this existence that I'm in. And, and then during all of this, the devil is having a conversation with God, and that's the way the play opens with. I think it's Christopher Marlowe's version. They're having a conversation, and the devil says, "I bet you I can tempt this guy." It's very similar to the biblical Job. And God says, "Okay, go ahead," and that's where the line "Let thy snares be planted" comes from. That's what he's saying is, "Go ahead." And so Mephisto shows up. And he says, I'll give you all this power. All you got to do is just sign over your soul. Sign it in blood. I'll do what you want. And then after this certain period of time, then you surrender your soul. And that's basically what the story is. And so Faust proceeds to seduce a woman. He gets her pregnant. She's ruined. And then at the end of it all, he feels bad because he's done this to her. And he tells Mephisto, take me instead of punishing her. So there's a little bit of salvation going on there as well. It's a really interesting story.
Yeah, it is that he's aware of what he's done and he wants to make up for that, get some sense of redemption. Again, this just must be, all these concepts must just be so interesting, enjoyable to write about and play. The music, Andy, as well, going along with this, is very powerful. I love the riffs, the drums. Again, Melissa, your vocals just complemented as well. So curious here, when you see these lyrics, and I know sometimes you might already have the music recorded and written, but is there any times, Andy, where you look at those particular lyrics, the title, and think, right, I'm going to make this riff maybe a little bit different here, like you really get that sense of feeling from the concept of that song? Does that ever influence your playing style?
Yeah, especially on some of the other songs. We'll get into that when we get to the final song, Strait of Messina. That definitely, once we heard Melissa singing, that influenced that song quite a bit. With The Bargain, this is a Nelson riff that the whole song is essentially this riff being played in a few different ways. And we wanted to do this sort of like homage to like traditional death metal, where we're going to play each riff one time, move on. If you want to hear that riff again, you'll have to hit repeat. It's not going to come back to it. And I'm sure for Melissa, that is not the easiest way to write a song, because we're giving her all these different riffs and we're like, there is no chorus in this song. And then she'll be like, we'll get these notes.
Is.
Yeah, well, we did change it a little bit to accommodate her, because it was like, we have to make this, I guess, a little bit more musical. But when initially she was like, well, here's the chorus, and we're like, there is not a part of this that we're repeating. I don't know what you have to be very specific.
I asked them to repeat it because I was in foreign territory, man. This song, it's like it never repeated the same thing twice, and I'm like, I can't write a song like that. So it was a learning experience for sure.
You know, like that pushing each other in the genres that we're not all familiar with, it creates like an interesting version of those genres. Like Melissa has no like history with like traditional death metal, so then to give her a song that's sort of written in that style and be like, here, figure it out, you know, it comes across as unique then on the record.
I was just about to say that would give it its own identity, like you said, make it more unique. And do you both prefer that as musicians and vocalists, where you've got something more challenging that's going to bring the best out of you, rather than something that's kind of, excuse me, there's an attack of a demon there, rather than, I wish I'd muted the mic on that one. See, it just happens. That was a stealth, an unintended stealth moment. But anyway, moving swiftly past that. Do you prefer something that does challenge you to bring the best out of you, rather than just saying sticking to some standard
definitely.
material? Yeah.
There's parts in the writing process where, like I wrote this in Bushido. There's this time change, and to get the guys to have it line up correctly was challenging, but you know, we could have dumbed it down a little bit, but everybody wants to step up their game and what they're doing. So, you know, the consensus of the band was, we're just going to do this thing that we're not comfortable with, that we don't typically do. And it's one of my favorite little moments on the record. I don't even know if most people will hear it, but when I'm playing it, I'm always excited, because it's like, hey, there's that little trick happening there that we don't do on any other song, and that's fun.
And coming from those different, as you said, Melissa and have that experience with the traditional death metal. So I'm wondering, when you were approaching to create music together, drawing from, I guess, a really fresh perspective, that must reinforce a new, unique identity on that music, because it's approaching it completely fresh. Must be quite exciting to do that, working together.
So this is kind of, I don't know if this is sad or funny, but when Rhett first approached me, when Rhett first recruited me for this band, the first conversation was, do you like Candlemass? And I said, I don't know anything by Candlemass. So I was definitely coming in with a clean slate, like no knowledge at all. I didn't know anything about Solitude Eternus. I didn't know anything about Candlemass. I didn't know anything about Bolt Throwers. So I'm learning. They're teaching me as I go along.
That's pretty amazing, though, because I said right before we started the chat, I said your vocals reminded me of Candlemass. So that's really amazing hearing that. And sometimes, you know, it's the best way, bringing people together from different backgrounds, experiences, and come up with something, you know, pretty amazing. Always works. So I did have a follow-on point, but that's evaporated again. So if it comes back, I'll ask you. Don't worry.
Well, I think it worked out for us, because if let's, you know, it's not like we went into it completely cold, thinking, can Melissa even sing? We or at least I became aware of her from a video. I think Rhett's wife sent it to us, of Melissa playing or performing "Hallowed Be Thy Name" at a club, and I saw her singing the Dickinson part and was just like, all right, well, if she can, like, what do we have to do to get her to be in audition for this band?
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
But so she had clearly like the chops for it, but I wasn't mad to find out, oh, she doesn't know about these bands that we're obviously influenced by. It was like quite the opposite. Because if it had been something where she had been performing Solitude by Candlemass in this video, and then we told her, hey, we're doing this band that has Candlemass, Solitude Eternus vibes in it, she may have come into it saying, okay, I'm gonna sing like maybe like Messiah or something, and done an interpretation of it instead of just being Melissa in this band.
Agreed. I think you're completely right. It's better in that sense, because then it's, completely, it's Melissa, and then the whole band, you avoid that pitfall then of, say, or we just sound like band A, just a little bit different here. Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, Melissa, have you always naturally sang that way as well? Because you have a good delivery with your voice, nice projection on it.
Well, I mean, it's a process. I've been I spent the pandemic working on a coaching program, working with a coach, trying to improve my skill, because I figured, I think everybody during the pandemic learned something new because we were all bored, but I just wanted to make the most of my time, and so I spent more time. I wanted to accomplish a couple of things. I wanted to be able to have more endurance and have wider range and deliver more power, and so I think I accomplished all of those things. I don't know if you've heard the first album. There's some difference. There's definitely some difference in range, but I don't know. I've spent most of my career singing in cover bands, so I can't really tell you what style I've been aiming for all this time. I look up to all the people you would assume: Bruce Dickinson, Ronnie James Dio, people like that, Joe Lynn Turner, David Coverdale, and I don't want to sound like those people, but they definitely influence my work ethic and my desire to improve every day. So some people say, people that say I sound like Messiah, I don't understand that, but it's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of sound like I sound. I don't really compare myself to anyone.
So how do you keep your vocals healthy and naturally ready? Do you have any particular warm-up techniques? Good pattern of rest helps. Because I know some people just don't do anything. They just say no, just turn up and sing.
Yeah, I watched a documentary a while back about the making of the Heaven and Hell records, and they were talking about Ronnie, who would basically just walk into the studio with a beer in his hand and be able to just start right off the bat, and it just blows my mind. What an amazing talent. But I can't do that. I do have to warm up, and there's a bunch of things that people don't realize. I mean, I'm an avid runner. I do that all the time to expand my lungs, my lung capacity. Get as much sleep as you can. I meditate. I train multiple times a week. And I'm always learning new things. I watch, many YouTube videos, tutorials on different skills to pick up. Like on The Bargain, it's the first time Stygian Crown has had a scream in a song, and that's something I picked up from YouTube. So I'm always looking for ways to get better.
Definitely. And I thought when you were, when you were mentioning, when we were chatting about being challenged as musicians to bring out the best in you, and it's like with learning anything, the same in martial arts, the style that challenges you brings out the best. It makes it more enjoyable, and you go away feeling I really got something out of that session. It's more rewarding. I learned something rather than just, I know we did a standard routine. It's okay, but it wasn't great. It's fairly boring, So the next song, we're in track 6 now, which is Where the Candles Always Burns. These have got some powerful lyrics as well, actually really powerful. So I just wondered if you could tell us what inspired the title, a bit about the lyrical themes, and then about the music as well, Andy.
Melissa's gonna have to explain the lyrics.
No, just put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I named this song "The Beast of Morbach." This is a German werewolf legend.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Rhett changed the title to "Where the Candle Always Burns," and I'll tell you where that comes from. But basically, this is a two-part story. It starts during the Napoleonic Wars. There is a soldier who deserts. He deserts his post, and he and several other soldiers, they start to terrorize villagers in the countryside, raping, pillaging, that sort of thing, until this one soldier, he kills this man, and the man's wife is standing there, and she casts a curse on him and basically turns him into a werewolf. Which didn't solve anything, because at that point the werewolf proceeds to continue what he's doing, killing and terrorizing people. The villagers rise up and kill him, and the story is that they create a shrine with a candle, and as long as the candle stays lit, the werewolf can't come back. Years later, there's American soldiers on a base in Moorbach, Germany. And they see this shrine, and they kind of crack some jokes, and then they notice, oh, the candle's burned out. What's that all about? And then all of a sudden, they see the werewolf spring to life, and that's the story.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but what's ironic about that is I've talked to German people, and they've never heard of it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So that's what that title is all about.
Oh man, that's fascinating.
The music. This was one of your songs, right, Melissa?
Yes.
Yeah. So this was one that started as a almost fully fledged track sent to the band by Melissa. It was her on piano. And did you have vocals, or was it just kind of a melody at the time?
No, I had vocals too.
Right. And this was maybe a little bit more challenging than some of the other ones that she had given us. But Eric kind of cracked the code, getting that. Once he got that first riff really like transitioned from piano to how are we going to do this as a doom song on guitar and bass and drums. When he cracked that code with that first riff, then it sort of just all happened. It was like, oh, I can now see the whole song, how it's going to be. And Nelson contributed obviously a lot to this, and Eric, and maybe the chorus riff or whatever I did with I really had to make sure that we maintained that key change also that Melissa had in the piano part. But that challenge pays off, because this is one of my favorite songs on the record, not just to listen to, but to play. The leads came out really fantastic on this, and it was because it was something that we're not used to doing. So it pushed us in kind of new territory with all of that. And yeah,
the leads were spectacular in that song.
Yeah, big high fives from Nelson and I to ourselves when we were in the studio doing the leads. We were like, oh,
heck yeah.
Yeah, gotta be. So obviously this is one of your favorite songs from the album, so I've got to ask now, put you on the spot, Andy. So with the next release, which I appreciate could be a way where we're focusing on this one at the moment, but I would imagine this is a song, the technique, as you mentioned, musically, this would be something you would like to do again, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it'll happen organically, just because Melissa's not going to stop sending us songs also. And I really like this style of, or like this way of doing things, where she sends us something that is not ready to be a doom song, and then or a heavy metal song, and then we change it. It's fun. I mean, if you want to know, like, I mean, because we're not going to release the thing that she sent us, but if you want to know how big of a jump it was from that, not saying that, I mean, this is clearly, like, it's in my mind, it stands out as, oh, this is a Melissa song, but the jump from what she sent us to it was at the end. You can just imagine, like, the piano vocal track that she has on this, the Blood Red Eyes, how far away that is from something like Bushido, right? And that's kind of like the journey that we had to take on Where the Candle Always Burns. It's a fun process. So yeah, that's going to keep happening.
Yeah, I would, and I've mentioned this point a couple of times, but if I was in your position, I would find that so interesting, because it's different all the time. It's forcing me to think even more creatively. So how can we turn this into a doom song? I certainly wouldn't be bored. It has that feeling of there's always something new and fresh, with the productive side as well. That just sounds like the ideal position to be in is if you're in a band. It avoids stagnation as well. So yeah, excellent. So with that said, Blood Red Eyes. This again has very powerful lyrics. Actually thought of quite a few interpretations when I read the lyrics, what it could signal. Probably not what I'm thinking of. So again, could you just tell us what inspired the title, the story behind the lyrics, and then if we come to the music as well?
So what did you think it was about?
Well, this is going to be, I don't know if anyone has said this. I thought of, and this is quite a nasty subject, I thought of a really horrible man who was taking away a woman's innocence, who was committing an act of rape, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, it's not too far off. This is a song about the Mexican/Spanish boogeyman called Cucuy.
Ooh.
And one version of that story is that a father who has 3 daughters, is trying to get them to do some work around the house, and 2 of them are obedient and doing what they're supposed to. The other one says, "I'm not doing that." And she actually laughs at her dad about that. And he says, if you don't do it, then Cucuy is going to come after you and take you away, And so the story is that Cucuy is this fearsome being with blood red eyes that abducts children, tosses them into a pit, and basically devours them later.
Right.
And so, yeah, so that's what the story is that this young innocent girl who is disobedient is abducted by this creature, and that's what the story of the boogeyman is. So it's a classic tale of parents, warning their children, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's Blood Red Eyes.
And Andy, what did you enjoy about constructing music for this one?
This is the one that we spent, I think, Melissa, you had some version of this to us shortly after the first record came out.
Yeah, we started working on new songs like almost immediately. Well, as soon as we were able to, because it was still pandemic times and we weren't able to get together for a while. But when we were able to, we started writing right away. And I spent a lot of the pandemic just writing song after song after song.
She had this
mind going.
Yeah, she had this idea and these riffs or these piano parts to us very early, and we couldn't create that moment where it clicked into what it would become. We kept trying, and it wasn't working. Other songs were getting finished. We were approaching having the completed record, and we kind of as a band mentioned to Melissa, like, maybe we just put this on the album as you've got it written. It was really good. The theme matched the album. It showed some, like, another side of Melissa's vocal range, another side of the band, and my son is here to say hi.
It's all right. Don't worry. We've had dogs, cats make appearances, so don't worry. I'm used to it.
Yeah. It was really, I didn't want it to not be on the record. There was, I think, I mean, to be fair, Melissa was a little concerned. What will people think?
I still am.
Right? Well, she was a little concerned. What will people think of this on the record? It's so different from everything else. But I don't think, and I don't think anybody else, or most of the, at least not like Brett and Nelson. I haven't had this conversation with Eric. It wouldn't surprise me if he was in the same boat. But we don't think about that part of it when we're writing it. We're writing music that we enjoy.
Yeah.
I can't control what another person is going to enjoy. So like my viewpoint of the whole process of like creating this art is, we make it, the audience initially is for us. There has to be an audience for it to be art. Otherwise you're just, what is it? You're just throwing it out into the ether. So initially you're the audience. So you have to like it. Then at some point it goes out to a wider audience. They have that's their participation in the record, and the music also is what will they think. But I had no control over that at the beginning. We all loved the song and we wanted it to be on the record.
Yeah. And you mentioned a key word there, art. First, it has to be for all of you. You have to enjoy it. So then it has that soul to it. And then once that's released out there to everybody else, then they will gravitate to it. Then you've got an audience. Hopefully they enjoy it. That will come across when you're playing live. And with everything in art, it's all subjective anyway. Someone could listen to one of these songs many times, come up with a different interpretation than me, even though, Melissa's fantastically outlining with what the songs are about. What I enjoyed about the album is I like the versatility. Yes, there's the riffs there, there's some tempo changes, beautiful vocals as well. And I like it when we've got to these songs, even the closeout, which we'll get to straight off Messinia, which is a nice, different closeout for the album. It feels like, well, I'll behave myself until we get there. Otherwise, I'm going to stop. That wouldn't be good. So yeah.
I'm glad you like that song, though.
Yeah, I feel it was a really nice way to close out the album. But yeah, I best behave until we get there. We're nearly there. So we just talked about Blood Red Eyes. That's right, yes. Isn't it? Yeah, just having a memory problem again. So Beauty and Terror, man, this I see, in the lyrics, sort of the Titans on the banks of the Nile. When my first listen through, yes, I did think of Zeus and his family overthrowing the Titans. And then when it got to the mention on the banks of the Nile, I thought, oh, best wait till I actually talk to them here. So with that said, could you break it down for us, Melissa? Tell us about the lyrics detail and the title as well.
So this is the lyrics have to do with the encounter between Oedipus and the Sphinx at the gates of Thebes.
Oh, wow.
So the story goes that the Sphinx was assigned by the gods to guard the gates of Thebes, and the only way that they could gain entry is if they correctly answered a riddle. Oedipus is going to Thebes, and he encounters the Sphinx and answers correctly, and not only gets entry, but is also named king. And this is a famous tale because he accidentally ends up marrying his own mother. So that's an interesting other part of the story. But Beauty and Terror has to do with the Sphinx. This is a story that's told from the perspective of the Sphinx. I believe this is the only female character in the album. Or no, my bad. This one and the song after this, female characters. But the Sphinx basically is female, and she devours her prey. The riddle is what walks. I'm going to get this wrong. What walks on two? What walks on four, three, then two? The answer is human beings, because basically you're born and you crawl on all fours, and then you become an adult walking on two legs, and then when you are elderly, you walk on two legs with a cane. And Oedipus was the only person who was able to answer this correctly, and as a result, the Sphinx flung herself off of the cliff to the banks of the Nile to her death.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Beauty and Terror is the Sphinx. She's both beautiful, but also a terror.
Yeah, got that duality. So was this how did you find putting the music together for this one, Andy?
This is my absolute favorite song to play on the record.
Hey.
The song has this duality to it, and because of that, the song is broken into kind of two parts. The beginning and the end are I consider like one theme musically, and then there's the middle part, and the middle part is Nelson just came to us with a riff that Bolt Thrower could have written, and I was like, I absolutely love this.
Yeah.
It's so heavy and different than other riffs on the record. We have not played this song to an audience yet. I cannot wait to see an audience react to this song, because it's just so moving that once it changes to that really heavy Bolt Thrower style riff. There's the two kind of call and response leads in it that Nelson and I really had a fun time writing. I always really enjoy it when he and I get to do kind of a call and response thing, because our lead styles are so different, but we play off of each other where it almost sounds like this could be one person just sort of changing the way they're going through their lead. But it was a really fun song to write, and it's my favorite one we play live, or that we rehearse. We haven't played it for an audience yet.
Yeah, it will be, as you said, very interesting to see the audience's reaction for sure, from your perspective. Great title as well, memorable one, Beauty and Terror. Certainly sticks out in the mind. Great one. Next, the closeout track, which, I was trying to behave myself about. Now I don't have to. Hey. Straight off Messenia. I liked this because I felt, how you got the introduction with Funeral for a King, and I felt this was a really nice, it was melodic as well, just a nice way to close out the album that has such some powerful riffs, and your vocals too. I think just, again, for the reasons, like I felt it was like listening to a heavy metal fantasy novel, which is great stuff. And I thought this was just a perfect close. So just once again, could you tell us about the title and break down some of the lyrics for us as well, Melissa?
Sure. So this is the story of two female monsters named Scylla and Charybdis. And this is actually the origin of a saying that some people have. Some people say you're caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
Other people might say caught between Scylla and Charybdis. And the Strait of Messina is a real place in southern Italy.
Yeah.
And it's an example of how real circumstances become mythology. in the case of the Odyssey, boatmen, travelers would travel through this strait, and the story is that if they veered too far to one side, Scylla was a six-headed monster. She used to be a maiden who was transformed due to jealousy into a six-headed monster. If you traveled too far to one side, Scylla would grab up all of the men in the boat and devour them. If you traveled too far to the other side, Charybdis was also once a maiden, but was transformed into this vortex of water. If you travel too far to that side, then your boat would basically be destroyed by the vortex. And so that's where that phrase, being caught between Scylla and Charybdis, comes from.
Yeah.
It's basically having to choose between two very terrible choices. And so I think that's where that story comes from, is people facing dire circumstances in that particular geographic area. They turned it into a story, and that's where Strait of Messina comes from.
That's absolutely fascinating. Talk about a reminder if you were sailing and you had a monster like that on either side as well, with keeping a balance for sure, going over one or the other. But some interesting metaphors in that as well. That's great. Did you enjoy putting the music together again for this one, Andy? Because I feel like it's a different song as well, different to some of the other songs, and that's why I felt it was quite a good closeout. It's like like I said, you've got the good introduction, and then this is a nice cinematic close.
It's the final song that we wrote, which sort of makes sense. They're not the order of the songs on the record is obviously not the order that they were written, but that one was written last, and it was coming from like a different place, and because of that, it makes a great closer. We had the music done before you wrote lyrics, right, Melissa?
That was one of the piano ones that I gave you guys, and Eric just somehow interpreted it in a way that made sense.
But not the second half of that.
No, you guys wrote that part.
Yeah, so we had this. Eric creates the beginning of the song, and we were trying to figure out what to do next with it. I had been talking to the band nonstop about Iron Maiden for probably a couple months at that point, because I had just built a guitar for Dave Murray that he used on this last tour that they were on.
Oh, nice.
And because of that, I was just, while I was making the guitar, I was listening to Iron Maiden nonstop, trying to really put that energy into the instrument I was making for him. And then we were going to write the second half of this song. And Nelson and I were working and came up with this riff that was just very Iron Maiden-y. And we decided, what if instead of it kind of sounding like that, we just really leaned into that? And it goes into something off of like Seventh Son on the second half of that song, with harmonizing guitar parts and just the leads, the way the song crescendos and ends. And yeah, it's from my perspective, it's a love letter to those guys. We all love that band. And that's going to come out in the music. And sometimes we try to, not disguise it, but like instead of it being just sprinklings of that, this one was like, we love Iron Maiden. Why are we dancing around this? Let's just show people how much we love this band.
Well, that's why I said I felt it was different. Again, it still carries that cinematic aspect to it as well, which I thought was great. most of us in metal all love Iron Maiden, I feel, because they're one of the legacy foundation bands for pretty much everything. Honestly, I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't like them from all manner of metal, whether it's from sludge, death metal, thrash, doom, traditional heavy metal. You know, I've yet to come. I'm sure there's people out there, but thankfully, though, doesn't seem to be too many. I'm dying to ask you a couple of nerd questions, Melissa. I've been on good behavior.
Yay, nerd questions.
Yeah. So the themes about monsters, myths, and legends. So it's going to be a loaded one. First part is, are you going to write about these themes for the next release? Is that going to be a consistent aspect to the writing?
I think that's a band decision. I don't want to be, the sole decider on that. But I am, I'm always researching, I'm always reading, I've always got the feelers out. I'm doing a lot of reviewing of podcasts about Robert E. Howard. So, there's a possibility of something maybe about Tulsa Doom.
Ooh.
I don't know. We'll see.
Ooh.
I can't wait to learn about that from you while reading the liner notes.
Well, I have a lot of late night text conversations with Rhett, like, what about this? Or what about this? And, I think he actually did bring up this idea for this album, is to do a song called Stygian Crown. I said, well, I don't have any lyrics ready to go for that. So it's got to be about Tulsa Doom.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm doing my homework on that.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. So
I'm excited. I'm finding out about this now.
Oh, this is awesome.
Breaking news.
Yeah, you heard it there, folks. My buddy who I co-host on the channel with over at Planet X Films, he will be so hyper when I tell him about that. I'll say, dude, you've got to check this band out. Conan references, and I said, you've got to, man. So I'm curious, Melissa, do you have any interest in like urban legends surrounding these mysterious creatures that people have cited, like Mothman, things like that?
I don't know. I mean, it's fun to read about that sort of thing, but I don't know if I would write a song about that. It's got to be something that goes beyond, yeah, that's pretty cool, or that would make a really good movie. It's got to have like some sort of a soul to it to me.
Yeah.
That's something that I can see from a first person perspective, So, I don't know. I mean, I have to think about that.
Okay, with that said, another loaded one for you. Follow on that. So with that said then, what would be the most interesting mythological tale that you've read about, and what character also really stands out to you? Completely
I don't know,
put you in the spot.
Andy, give him a suggestion. Give me a suggestion, Andy.
Oh,
anything from Greek mythology, Egypt, Sumeria, any of those areas.
We did a song on the first record. It was the opening track, not the intro, but it's called "Devour the Dead," and that's an Egyptian myth called about a beast called Ammit.
Ooh.
And Ammit was basically not a god, but her task was basically to devour hearts. And in Egyptian mythology, basically, when you are sent to the afterlife, your heart is weighed against a feather. And if it's lighter than the feather, then you can go off and have a wonderful afterlife. The other is that you are devoured by Ammit. And I thought, this is just a beast who's given a task and really you can't really feel one way or the other about her, but you kind of have to feel some sympathy because this is her job. This is probably just an awful thing, but maybe she doesn't see it that way. I just like looking at these creatures and thinking, about it from a different way than the way they're presented, you know.
Mm.
That's one that I like. And then the story of Cerberus is another one that I really enjoy as well. But I'm always looking for new ideas.
I'll probably push Melissa at some point to write something about Fenrir.
Fenrir, yeah.
I've always really
I was
enjoyed.
thinking about that.
Yeah.
But it's like we had the story of Cerberus, which I realize is a completely different beast, but you know, but yeah, I would like to do. Oh, and actually, we had the add-on song in the first album about Jormungandr, and I probably completely mangled the pronunciation of that, but you know, it's another Norse myth, the Norse being. So yeah, I was reading a lot about Fenrir during all of that time.
I've just always really enjoyed that story. I read that one to my kids a lot.
Yeah.
And just like the sense, I mean, he's clearly a monster at the end, but that sense of betrayal he must have felt when he realized that he was tricked by the people that he thought loved him, I think is an interesting side of that story. I'd like to see Melissa write about that.
That's what I like about these stories from myth as well, is they've got when you look closely at the characters, they've got that human element to them, those questions people have been faced with or problems they encounter, and that's probably why they've endured for so long, just for that reason. You're certainly going to edge Melissa into writing about Godzilla, as I mentioned earlier. That's on there. Yeah.
We'll do that on a. We'll do an EP.
Yeah, just putting that out there, just encouraging.
We'll do a split.
Yeah. Right. What I like as well, excuse me, is I was looking at your merchandise. I love the hoodie. And this really caught my attention as well. There was a couple of things actually. The T-shirt, "Funeral for a King," where you've got the cover on the front and the logo on the back. Love that. Even the fonts on the lettering and the different colors of the vinyl discs as well. Mm-hmm. Those are really nice. And there's even one where, in particular, I think it's like the dark gray version. And again, I just thought it just matches the whole tone of the music, the feel of the band, the cover. So those are really fantastic. Did you all, because a lot of people, the reason I'm asking this, and it's one of the consistent topics on the show, bands have said they still like releasing vinyl, even though it's super expensive, because a lot of people collect them as artwork as well, not just to listen to. They'll sometimes buy 2 copies, one to listen to, and either one they'll put on the wall in a frame or anything. And there's when I've been looking at bands who've been releasing vinyl that come on the show, and I've seen the various color options they've done and with the artwork, and I'm like, man, this is fascinating. There's something special about it. I'm seeing that now.
Yeah, we were lucky with our first release. Our label believed in the record so much that they did a really high quality gatefold release of it. At least for the first pressing, we had just a slip jacket second pressing of that. But we as a band and the label realized that the people who are enjoying this music like to collect these vinyl, or like to collect vinyl just in general, because the vinyl was selling so well. So I was blown away by the label wanting to put out 4 versions of the vinyl at launch.
Yes.
There's the standard edition, it's black, 2 limited edition versions. They're remember what they're called, Melissa? Like one is like funeral
there's
violet.
3.
Yeah.
Well, there's the 2 limited, and then there's the 1 ultra limited.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The ultra limited is the clear spirit version. That's 100 of those will be in existence.
Sands of Time is a gold.
Sands of Time, that was the other one. Yep, those are
also.
Yeah, the funeral violet. all the limited versions are selling fast. The clear Spirit version is already sold out on our end. I'm sure there's some available in Europe still, but as far as the US goes, those are gone. Yeah, and that's just having great support from our label, Cruz del Sur. Enrico, yes. There, he's incredible. He's believed in us. It's great to have a partner like him.
Yeah, somebody who matches that vision. To put a nerdy tagline on this, and again, I do mean this in the greatest of ways as well. Just come on my mind. If someone said a recommendation for you, I said, go and read Conan and listen to the band whilst you're reading Conan. It's a win-win all round.
Yeah.
So I just wondered as well, do you have any more planned videos come to support the album for any of the songs?
I think the label usually just puts out one lyric video. In our case, we got lucky because we had that intro as well.
Yeah.
No lyrics on that. But yeah, I mean, unless we do something independently, that's probably all we're going to have for a little bit.
Yeah.
And do you have any planned shows in 2024 that we can drop so people can have heads up, any fests or anything like that? And are you coming back over to Europe next year?
Yep. Do you have those dates, Melissa?
Yeah. I don't have them. Well, both the major fests that we're playing in early March, we're playing Up the Hammers in Athens, Greece. We're very excited about that.
Wow.
Our third time in Europe.
Yeah, that'll be March. That festival goes March 7th through 9th.
Yes. And then 2 weeks later, we're going to be in Houston, Texas, playing Hell's Heroes. We're super stoked about that because there's bands on that bill that haven't been seen
we're getting
in a long
Candlemass doing the Nightfall.
Wow.
Set.
And then a rare appearance by Solitude Eternus.
Yep.
I mean,
the original
crazy.
line for Solitude's getting back.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That's absolutely amazing. Listen, I've really enjoyed talking to you both. I've been in my absolute element. I've been still trying to behave myself, not going off on my nerd tangents, which has been difficult because I'm interested in all of these areas as well. It's a great album. I love the versatility. Can't even speak now. I love the versatility, the range in the music, everything from the riffs, your vocals, Melissa, the concepts.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I've been enthralled just hearing the stories. I've been enthralled about. Seem so excited. I can't even get the words out.
You're speechless. This is the effect we wanted to give you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I better be, when I'm doing my language lessons, say, right, I need to redo English first before. Take a deep breath, guys. Breathe. And I forgot what. Look, it's just an awesome album, everybody. Honestly, if you love everything from traditional heavy metal, huge doom riffs, really good atmospheric vocals as well, and with a powerful delivery and really great projection, then you will certainly dig this album. Definitely go and get it. All the links will be in the description. Fantastic stuff. So when I get to the end, I always like to give people the floor so they can promote anything they want, not just from the band. If there's anybody you want to shout out, so the floor is yours. So feel free to shout, promote anything at all.
Oh, Melissa's gone.
Sorry.
Sorry.
She's like, goodbye.
God dang it! Hold on. I was trying to get a screenshot. Who do we want to give a shout out to? I mean, first of all, I just want to thank Cruz del Sur for just believing in us from the beginning. We definitely appreciate that. I want to thank Tom Phillips for giving us recommending us to the label, giving us the shot that we desperately wanted. And I just, everybody who has supported us by buying merch, coming to our shows, we greatly appreciate all of you for believing in us, and we look forward to seeing you guys at our future shows.
absolutely. Big shout out to the label, all the bandmates who aren't here right now. Yeah. Doom upon you all.
Yeah, Doom.
2024.
Yeah. Doom from an honest place as well. Really like that.
Thank you.
So folks, I shall see you all on the next episode of, might be called MOSH SHINOBI by then, which is Tuesday, with Ninjas Unleashed from Australia, then in Gulf, who are on later on that day as well. Don't forget to support and subscribe to the channel. I'm usually on here every day, verbally polluting the airwaves with someone. Everybody have a great start of the week. Thanks again to Andy and Melissa. It's been awesome stuff. And now it's where, as usual, uncomfortable pause time where I hit end stream and there's a delay and I look like, yeah, something's momentarily possessed me. So here we go.